Welcome to the Redlands Camera Club Iceland presentation. Today I have the pleasure of addressing the Redlands Camera Club about photographing in Iceland. On February 2nd, I took a trip to Iceland with a group of photographers on a photographer's tour. I would like to share some of the experiences that I had there, along with the images I was able to capture. Photographing in Iceland, my actual trip began on January 31st, 2031. The trip over to Iceland, I left Ontario Airport and traveled to Seattle. Seattle, I had a one-way nonstop flight to Iceland. We left about 5 in the evening, and with time changes and everything, we arrived in Reykjavik at Kiev Airport at about 5:30 in the morning. Traveling to Iceland, you will see the sunset and darkness for the rest of the trip. On the way home, the sun will not set at all. This is a map that kind of shows our route that we flew. You get an aerial view from a satellite on what it looks like. The stars represent various places along the way we stopped. The little bells are hotel stops along the way also. Life is a great adventure, or it is nothing, Helen Keller once said. I think of photography as being a great adventure. Kaiser has a saying, thrive. Well, I want to thrive. My workshop philosophy is if you spend too much time looking for that iconic shot, you will not enjoy the workshop. Have some fun along the way. I believe in having fun along with shooting iconic images. We went to the Baltic columns and pillars in Iceland. This is a picture from the web of what the pillars look like during the summertime. This is a picture of when they look like in the wintertime. This is the cave that was at the Baltic pillars also. This is me having just a little bit of fun looking at the icicles. Again, I believe in having fun along the way. If you go to the Mountain Lakes at the Devil's Post Pile, you can see similar pillars also there. This is some of our photographers that we had fun along the way and enjoyed ourselves and shooting as a group. One of the nice things is going with a group is you have other people that share your interest. When shooting as a group, you don't always control what you're able to see because you have to be patient and wait for your friends and associates to move so you can get the shots you're looking for also. Like with Wayne's trip to Iceland, the thing you have to look out for is you have to wait for other people to move out of your shots. And it's a matter of just simply being polite. And if you wait long enough, people will move out of your way. But the photographers had a lot of fun, and you get to pick up new techniques when you photograph. As a group, you get to see stunning sunsets or sunrises, as the time might be. I enjoyed shooting with these folks. They were a lot of fun. And we got to show folks different ways of photographing. And this again, and me having some fun with the horses. And so were some of our photographers. This is Ron on the right, who was my roommate when I was there. He was very nice to get along with. And also, I met very friendly animals while we were there. Doesn't he have a lovely smile? Also, I took the opportunity to get into some of my photos. This was photographed at the church graveyard. The Iceland workshop, I arrived February 1st, and I previewed the city of Reykjavik. We traveled around Iceland. Day one, we spent 44 minutes going to the hotel in Reykjavik. From Reykjavik, we traveled to Vikmardal, 114-mile drive according to the maps. The map said here it was supposed to be 2 hours and 34 minutes. The speed limit in Iceland is approximately somewhere between 30 and 35 miles an hour. We traveled on Highway 1. That is the main highway around the island. Looking at the time of 30 to 35 miles an hour, this first day trip to our hotel took approximately almost 4 hours. Day number 2, we traveled to Haley Country Hotel. And this part of the road, it was the only thing that was there that we could stop at. The trip lasted 140 miles and was approximately about a little over 3 hours. The following day, day 4, we traveled to Hotel Fremen, and it was situated on many of the fjords that frequent Iceland. The total mileage was about 88 miles. It was about 4 hours. Day number 5 and 6, we stayed at Sea Hotel Myra. Total drive was 142 miles, or again, it was about 4 hours again. On day 7, we traveled to Hotel Boxenbad. It was 124 miles. I would say that it was more like 4 hours. On day 8 and 9, we stayed at Hotel Lankenholt, and we visited on the north side of the peninsula. And the following day, we also went back to the north side, and we also visited on the west side of the peninsula there. Day number 10, we drove 99 miles back to Hotel Foss in Reykjavik. It was 99 miles. We did have to get back there a little early so we could do our COVID test to ensure if we had a negative, we could board the plane the following day and be able to return home. Looking at this itinerary and looking at my trip, I took a day off early and got there a day early so I could visit around Reykjavik and get acclimated to the time zone because I spent most of the night awake. And I'd almost recommend anyone going on a photography workshop to a foreign country. Maybe you stay there a couple extra days too, and shoot around and become familiar with the other things that you wanted to sit there and visit along the way. This was our 2 photography tour guides. The gentleman on the left is Bob Fletcher, and the one on the right is Jeff Swinger. On the left side of the screen here, it features Sharpie. He was our driver and tour leader around the island. Jeff Swinger is featured on the right side of the picture, and Bob Fletcher is seated 2 people behind Sharpie. By the way, this is where we stayed. In Iceland, one of the major industries today is tourism. They love people to come visit their country. This was the van that we traveled around Iceland in. It's a Mercedes Sprinter, 46 feet long, and it seats 15 people plus 2. We had 13 in our tour group, along with the 2 tour guides and Sharpie. This was the seating arrangements that we had in the van. Where possible, we had Wi-Fi hotspots, which was helpful. And you can see the inside of the van too. This is the van featured on one of the snowy days in one of our stops. Behind it, you see a trailer. In the van, we carried all our camera gear. In the trailer was all our other baggage. We were allowed one large bag and 2 carry-ons. By the way, we also got to help along the way. Here we're helping Sharpie where he got stuck once. You would think with this big van and the 4-wheel drive, we wouldn't get stuck. But we had the opportunity to get out and push. That was the only time it happened. In Reykjavik, you can come early and stay an extra day, like I said. This is a view of the city from the country's national cathedral. As you can see, Reykjavik is a very modern city with a lot of modern things. They even have Costco there. This is the National Cathedral. It is featured in Reykjavik. The photo of Reykjavik was taken from the top of the bell tower, which is right above the clock. By the way, they charge €8 to go to the top. This is the inside of the chapel. Very pretty. This is looking from the back of the chapel to the front. This is the altar in the chapel, along with the podium. This is the organ that's featured in the back of the chapel. This is a picture that someone else shot of the National Cathedral. This is the shot I missed. I guess it helps when you go somewhere to do a lot of search on YouTube. You can find out a lot of angles before you go to find the shot that you're. The national church of Iceland is the Lutheran Church. Throughout Iceland, they have a lot of these little chapels that are featured here. Reykjavik also hosts a lot of different items in their stores as you walk around. I found it very fascinating and interesting to see some of the stores. They featured bicycles in their display, the architecture on the outside, spiral staircases, interesting artwork on the buildings. They had a lot of bookstores. Unfortunately, I could not tell you what the titles of these books were because they were all in the Icelandic national language. This was a yarn shop in Iceland. One of their big industry is wool, and they sell their wool. It's very warm. If you're going to Iceland, their hats they kept me very warm while I was there, along with their gloves. Other things that are featured in their storefronts are as follows. They even ride bicycles in the winter. The food in Iceland is terrific. It's a bit more expensive when you're there. This is one of the places where we stayed at when we were traveling around Iceland. This one had a very rustic appearance to it. In Hotel Foss in Reykjavik, this was the buffet that we were treated to there. It's included in a one-night stay. If you come early like we did, it's $27. And this is some of the food that was featured around the island at different places where we stayed. As you went around the island, this is an example of one of the menus at one of the places we stayed. The numbers were in thousands, like lamb meat patties were 29,000 Icelandic denominations. In American dollars, it was $21.74. Catch of the day was $30, and lamb fillet, which was very good, was $43. Desserts were kind of modest, $11 and $7.50, just to kind of give you an idea, and they varied from place to place. Here are some of the examples of the fish that was there, and some of the other foods that were displayed while you were there. The one thing I can tell you is the Icelanders know how to cook fish. It was extremely delicious. This is another buffet that we featured at another place. I found it very interesting there that one of the courses that they would offer, buffets, was pork and beans. This particular place not only offered hard-boiled eggs, but 3-minute eggs were there soft. Waffles were something, fruits and vegetables, granola, other items. Very good food there. The grocery stores had a lot of food too, a lot of variety. It's a bit more expensive than here. Do expect to pay more for food there, whether you're camping or whether you're eating out. And they also have a lot of brands that are typical of what we have here, just named differently. The weather in Iceland when we went, the average temperature at night was down to 10 or 12 degrees. One night it got down to 3. Typically, it would average 20, 25 degrees during the day. And then during the night, the high was probably maybe around 36 while we were there. What made the weather different is the amount of wind that we received. This is a video of the wind blowing snow at one of the churches where we were at, photographed one day. I have sped up the video twice its normal speed, just so you could see how the wind was blowing. I do want you to know it was blowing and it was very windy. This is one that we had shot on the far side of the island on the peninsula. It was a black church. They used to use pitch on the outside of the churches to keep the weather from inundating the inside of the buildings. They've since then done some changes. Again, you could see the wind blowing the snow across the road here. It would make an effect of being able to photograph during the day. The wind not only had an effect upon your gear, your battery lives, but the moisture could also sit there and create problems for the mechanical working of your equipment. This is a picture of one of their snowplows. that would clear the roads for us. In Iceland, during a winter storm, they will shut down the roads and lock them down, and you will have to stay in a place maybe more than one day, depending on the weather. Um, if you're driving your car and you have an accident when the roads are closed, the insurance companies will not compensate you if it's during a road closure. Again, stormy winter conditions were all over. This was a storm that was breaking up and coming in when we were there that day. Beautiful scenery that you can see here. Mountains, they look gorgeous during the winter time. This is kind of a whiteout condition that I took advantage of, where they photographed these trees that were standing by themselves, and you can make out the fence line in the background and the hills in the back. Having clouds during the day did make it terribly difficult sometimes to get the white balance right, or to be able to get definition in your pictures. I found that tough during the winter time. This is Hotel Fremont that we stayed in the East Fords. This was the evening that we arrived. The next morning, this is what the weather looked like. Again, we spent 2 days at this location. Again, the food was excellent. We enjoyed it. You can see the amount of snow that fell on the outside of the window. What was amazing there were other places that, even though we had snowstorms, when we got to other places, there actually was no snow on the ground. I was kind of amazed to see this rock with moss growing on it. It may have still been frozen. This is one of the fjords in the harbors that we stayed at. The sun broke long enough that I could take a nice picture of the water and the mountains there. We got to see one geo hot spring there. And based on the snow on the ground, nobody wanted to take off the clothes and take a dip. I guess it was the real fear of having to walk back all wet. Maybe that was the reason why they chose not to enjoy the hot springs. This is the Black Chirp of Búðir, Iceland. This is one that I showed you earlier. This is a morning sunrise there at the church. And this is a graveyard that was right next to it. When the wind kicked up, it almost looked like a sandstorm. It did make it very hard to photograph, but I guess you get the feeling of the desolation that's there in Iceland during the winter months. The accommodations were great that we stayed at. This is Hotel Foss that we stayed at for 2 nights and on a return trip before we went home. This is a view from our window from the hotel. This was a night shot that I took. And then this is another one later on at night from the same window. Life in Iceland, could say, is hard. This was many of the cities that were there. And like you see in many of our cities, they're much like what we have here. If you live in the northern part of the country, this would be a typical scene that you would see here. Housing, this was one of the harbors where a lot of people had homes. They also have apartment buildings there. This was a picture of one of the smaller homes, and this is some of the shipping. They still do. One of their major industries there is still fishing, and out in the harbor they raise cod and they raise salmon, and they're in farms out there in big nets where they're free to swim around, but they're easy to pull up and harvest. The Northern Lights was one of the reasons why I went to Iceland. I wanted to be able to see the Northern Lights. And I was really thrilled with the ones that I saw. There is an app wherever you go, whether you go to the North Pole or the South Pole, depending on the time of year. North Pole has to be seen in the winter, South Pole has to be seen in the summer. But the Aurora Forecast app is a free app that you can sit there and see. And as the aurora more intensifies, the aurora goes from green to orange to red zone. And this gives you a good idea of what you're going to see during that night of the Aurora Borealis. This is what the aurora borealis would look like to the naked eye. This is what the aurora borealis looks like after your image is imported into your camera and you show it in a JPEG image. To shoot the northern lights, I was shooting at 15 seconds at f4.5 at an ISO of 2000. I was using a 12 millimeter arts lens from Sigma, and it was a 12 to 24 millimeter zoom. You know, when they say you shoot the Milky Way, you're supposed to have these red lights on your camera, on your heads, so you don't interfere with the folks' pictures. As you can see, they showed up rather well in this one. I wish I would have taken some video while I was there of them. Again, there's our band and some more of the aurora borealis. Another same image as the one we shot earlier in the same direction. Notice how the northern lights have changed. Another change here, another one over here. And here, this one, we picked up more of the reds and the oranges as well as the greens. This to me looked like there was a wolf howling in the northern lights. My grandson said it looked like Godzilla. Photographing Iceland, the animals. There were a variety of animals to photograph. We saw a multitude of horses which are being raised in Iceland. They will not allow anyone to import any other type of breeds into Iceland because they don't want them infringing on the Iceland herds. You can see how different the horses are there. And the photographers, horses like the photographers, they would come up and they were very friendly. The thing is, you did have to wait for your turn to get in and get some more close-ups of the horses there. As you look at these horses, this one's scratching his cheek side over there on this post. But look at the long hair and the manes that the horses have. Look at the heavy and when they'd see us coming, they would kind of look and see, and oh wow, there are some people here. And again, as you can see, the snow levels were not too thick in this area at the time. It was amazing to see the different variety of horses that they had. These horses were galloped towards us, and I thought it was neat to be able to sit there. They have 5 different strides in Iceland. I cannot remember them all. And this is the Amigo 3. They came up and took a very nice photo. They are very photogenic. Again, typically they have them herded up, and the hay that the marshmallows that Wayne featured in his video, that's how they stack the hay out there, and then they break it up for the horses. And there's an example. These aren't multicolor, they're just all white. This is an example of the horse corrals that they have there for their livestock, whether they're doing sheep or horses, I don't know. Also, I got to see a whole bunch of little snow bunnies. Their activity, as you watch them, remind us of the sparrows that we see hopping around our picnic areas. They were around this one area, picking up little pickings left over from the people. We also got to see reindeer there. This is a close-in zoom of a crop photo of the reindeer. This is a picture of the reindeer with my 600 millimeter Sigma lens. By the way, they were twice as far as this away when you looked at the picture. And they were very skittish. They saw us and they started moving really quickly. Here's another example. The reindeer's out on another plain grazing. Places of interest. They have lots of monuments in Iceland. This is a monument to Eric Leverson. It's Eric. Other monuments to the Vikings because they had a very northern influence there in Iceland. This is the Voyager monument, and you can see it's in the shape of a Viking ship. National Park, they have one of the volcanic, they have the North Atlantic plate and the European plate that meet in the middle of the Iceland. And because of that, they have a lot of volcanic activity. When we were there, there was not a lot of volcanic activity, but to go and see the volcanic activity, it basically takes you a whole day just to go out and look and see that. But there wasn't much action when we were there. So anyway, this is a nice national park they have. In the park, this is the fault that runs through the country. During the summertime, you can actually swim in the fault. During the wintertime, a little too cold. This was sunrise in the park that we were at. This is one of the churches that they have there. I caught this at sunrise. I love the way that the sunrise was lighting up the inside of the church. As you can see, the sun lighting up the church. I enjoyed the over here. This is where the Prime Minister of Iceland used to have his summer home. Day 7, February 8th, we visited the East Forge waterfall, the Baltic columns, which I already mentioned, and Meyervat Lake. This is what the waterfalls look like during the summertime. Again, I borrowed the image from Google, so you can get an idea of what they look like. This is what it looked like during the winter. When we arrived there at that time of day, it was towards the evening, but at this time of the year, you will not get the sun shining on the waterfall. So oftentimes the waterfall is in shade. As you can see, one way to lead up to the falls was through the stairwell. This again was what the waterfalls look like during the summertime. Again, during the wintertime, the same scene going up through there. Other waterfalls also graced the valley that was there. And then on this side of the waterfall, this is opposite the stairwells. And getting close, if we got a wind, you get the water spray on the front of your lens and it would freeze because of the cold. So that was something you had to work on. As you can see, our group was over there photographing. During the summertime, it's a great opportunity to walk back behind the falls. When we were around this section, we actually had to put on our boots, ice chains or ice spikes that would cleave into the ice so we wouldn't slip and fall, or at least lessen the opportunity of falling. This is the view opposite the waterfalls. It is a wonderful valley that's there. Next day, this is Black Beach that you see featured here. These are other items that we can go and see, and that were there that you can, if you're doing a tour yourself, you should spend a fair amount of time Googling, like what Wayne said, going through the Auto Club is a real good source of getting good locations and places to stop. Look at the amount of spray that's coming off the waves from the velocity of the wind. This was taken at another location where it was extremely windy and the waves were cresting. We got there early, so we got to take all the nice pictures without all the people being in the, all the other people coming out there to look at that. Another waterfall in Iceland. I was simply amazed at the fact that they have water flowing with how cold it is there. I was just amazed at that. This was called Jackie Chan's Mountain because Jackie Chan came out there and they filmed a movie out there. So our tour guide, Sharpie, said, this is Jackie Chan's Mountain. As you see below the mountain, there's a glacier there. And as we get further away, you can see much of the glacier that is there. And they do say because of climate change, the glaciers are shrinking in size. This is part of the glacier. I enjoyed this part, and I made this into a panel because it looked to me as though it was a river flowing in ice that had gotten frozen in time. This glacier flows into Glacier Bay, and these are some pictures of the ice and how big the icebergs actually really are in the bay. And then they all flow out through this small inlet and over the bridge here and out to the ocean, which then gives us the opportunity to photograph on the beach with ice as it gets marooned in the on the shore when the tide's in, and when it goes out, it just stays there. This is some video of the bay. This piece of ice here has been marooned on some rocks. It might get loose and thrown off of it. This is done at 2 to 3 times the normal speed. And then this is looking back at the bay and looking at the ice flowing. After that, we went to the ice caves, which was about a 2-hour walk to get there. And for the most part, we didn't have to trample through snow, but it was very rocky. This is the interior of one of the caves with some people that had also come to look there. There were some very interesting images that you could get here. A lot of abstracts that it was great for. In the thinner parts of the cave, where you had light coming through and it was thin, you could sit there and see a lot. When you got further down the tunnel where the ice got a lot thicker, it was just like walking into a cave. There was a lot of light. This was our group of photographers that were there when we were photographing. And this is some of the images of the ice in a close formation. Other interesting things are the snow blowing in and filling potholes and creating other wind tunnels there. You can see from one direction to another, depending on the intensity of the light, how things will change. I enjoyed on the lower right that strip of where the ice had, the wind had hauled out some of the ice and snow had blown into it. Again, we're back to the bay, and then the ice beach and the glacier bay. These were some of the images that we caught while we were at the ice beach. What made it difficult in photographing these was the fact that for most of the time there was a fairly heavy overcast, and so it was really hard to be able to see the glimmer in the ice. This is a wide angle of the beach and how it looked there, and the sea and the ocean. This is a close-up of more ice. We tried to do different things to sit there and do things. As you see off to the far right, the photographer was trying to catch the ice in a different shape. What's interesting is sometimes you can see the ice where it forms other animals, like a whale or a seal. Looking at this piece here, and then looking at the sand, it was just interesting to see the black sand. This is stroke mist. We saw this on February 6th. This is what it looks like during the summer, other than we were able to see a longer exposure on the wave and the tide being out. This is what it looks like during the non-winter months. Again, this is another image. I was trying to get a good reflection of the mountain and the water, and this was done over a long exposure. This is some of the lighthouses that they have in Iceland because they have such jagged coasts. They like to protect the fishing industry. This is the one at Havn's Peninsula Lighthouse that we were able to photograph at also. And this was sunset over in one of the forts. If you look at the dark line in the clouds in the horizon, it's about a quarter of the way down. That would be as high as the sun would get in the winter time. It always would be fairly low on the horizon. Here's another view of one of the fjords and the mountains there. I love the snow, how it brings out the rocks that are there. Another lighthouse, a little different than the one we saw. This is an example. We were traveling in the van, and I wasn't able to capture this, but this is a picture of the fish farming that they do in the fjords, where that day again the wind was blowing very graciously. As you can see in this capture here, you can see the waves arching over the rocks. Again, another view, a little wider angle. This is a shipwreck in one of the fjords. It's one of the things that are often photographed by many people. These are different images in a black and white, and another one in color. And then I took the anchor of this and turned the back of it into black and white, and just highlighted the anchor itself being all rusty. These are Esther Horn Mountain, shot during the summer. And this is the winter in the same spot. This is a panel of the bay there. This is Harkendon. I thought this range of mountains was very beautiful during the winter, with it being capped with the snow and the ice. This is what it looks like during the summer months. I thought it looked much more majestic during the winter months. There were no whales there during the winter time. This is a shot that I missed that was featured in Guide to Iceland. We got to see Grosfoss, which are some waterfalls there. Thunder, you can try to pronounce that, but these were a nice set of waterfalls there. We got there a little early. They hadn't plowed the road yet for the snowfall the night before, so we had to wait a bit before we got there. As you can see, we had a bit of break in the clouds, but they move around. This was the waterfalls that were featured there. This is a close-up. What do you see in there? Well, I got to see an old Viking. It looked like an old Viking there. I thought that was real interesting. And then there were a variety of waterfalls coming into there at this point in time. This one is shot from the side. And this was from the water flowing away under the bridge from the water. Well, during the summer, you could sit there and you could see, you could get down to the river's edge and get some low-lying pictures. But I wasn't willing to hike down through all that snow to try to get a picture. It was fairly deep along there. The other thing I didn't want to do was to fall into the water flow. This is what it looks like during the summer months. Then we travel north. This is a Viking monument. I wish I could remember the purpose of it, but it was featured there as one of the monuments that are there. And down the road, we have some interesting shots of other things that were there, like the Helena Arch that's over there. As you can see, they have some really nice platforms there to stand on. And at this time, there were a lot of seagulls that were flying around there. They were nesting on the sides of the cliffs. A close-up of it. Other rock formations that are along the coast there that were interesting to photograph. Here are some photos that I didn't get to see that were featured in that area. I didn't get to see any of the puffins because they only come to mate and have their chicks during the spring. And then they all fly back out to sea and they spend the rest of the year out there. You can also photograph these wonderful birds also up in Alaska. This is one of the pictures that Wayne featured. This is 100% of roadhouses that were sought. I didn't get to see this either because they were all covered with snow. This is one of the lakes there. It was very pretty to sit there and see. Off to the right, you see a little house there that was on the other side of the lake. Our tour guide actually flew his drone over here. This was one of the areas you could have flown a drone. And this is a picture of the house on the far side. Really cropped in tight and shot with as much as I could with my 600 millimeter. These are some folks that were riding their horses, getting them exercise out there. We got many pictures of them doing that. It was enjoyable watching the horses. You know, when you sit back and you look at the animals, you need to watch their behaviors because they're really interesting. They all, when we came up, they all looked at us and kind of gave us a blank stare. What are you looking at? And then they all started coming towards us. I wish I had a carrot or two. And then our lovely, wonderful crew of photographers got in the act of photographing them. They were very friendly. Here are two horses. One was a female, one was a male. And the male is the black on the right. He was making advances towards the female. And the female really didn't want to have anything to do with them. So we caught him in a couple nice poses here. Nothing too sharp, but she was having nothing to do with him. But you know, the horses were very photographic. They did some nice portraiture here. Here are two other ones that were nice that shows off their wonderful manes and their long hairy coats. I would like to thank everyone this evening for taking the time to listen to this video on photographing Iceland. I hope that you all enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed going there and seeing the awesome colors and seeing things that I had not seen before. I hope you found this video informative and enjoyed it. Thank you so very much.